parameters. That's what we are, right, today?
Yes, you're right.
Episode 736. Right. Contemplate through true principles so the attachment to worldly love is forgotten. I should have bold this one, worldly love. Worldly love is sensual love. Now, I'll come to that later. The Bodhi path is one of lasting compassion and great love. Then the question is, what then is great love, which I will come to later. The Bodhi path is one of lasting compassion and great love. And it's from this great love that you can grow in compassion. The Dharma can transform all and quell suffering and hardship. So when Dharma can transform all, and just the flow through from this great love, transform all, then how can we then transform all? Is that we need to have unconditional love, right? And quell suffering and hardship. Impartial compassion, that means there's absolutely no distinguishing between one or another, and that is altruistic love. For all, there's a practice of the right path. So there's a lot of, I think the teaching today is about growing from worldly love to this impartial love. The question is, what is impartial love, right? Which I will explain a bit later. The true principles are the great Dharma of one vehicle. And you all know about this, right? We must mindfully dwell into and meticulously contemplate these true principles. So this Dharma of one vehicle that must have been sharing us with the Lotus Sutra. And this is the part that she's telling us to meticulously contemplate on these true principles. And a lot of principles in this one vehicle teaching. And so in just one principle alone, and you notice Master has broken it down and expanded the explanation from lesson after lesson. So we humans, because of worldly love, become confused over the principles. So why are we confused over these principles? Because of worldly love? That's because of the attachment to this worldly love. Now, where then is that attachment come from? That attachment comes from our desire. So that when then the desire comes from, the desire comes from our heart, of course. So we are born we're unenlightened beings. We're still in samsara. We're born in this world as a human being. So in this realm is the desireless realm. So therefore you see the natural flow from the desire from our heart that we could lead to attachment. And that's what worldly love is about. So all the feelings that we are experiencing cause afflictions. So these afflictions arise from this attachment or the desire that we have together in our mind. So that from the desire in the heart, obviously then goes to the mind, and that's the mind where there's an emotion. The emotion arises because of the ego. If the ego wants something or ego is hurt, that's where we cause affliction, because from the thought of that mind, it will lead to a speech or inaction, forming the current conditions of our life. So lay people face hardships and worries of lay life. And that's what we are, right? So face hardships. So what are these hardships that we face? So if you look at the life that we have, the life that we have come with certain karmic blueprint. So this blueprint, when the condition is right, certain events will manifest in our life. So these are the becomings of our life. So when the becomings manifests, we will then react based on how the emotion of the mind. So the emotion of the mind also is a combination of what our desire is. And then and also our worries of a lay life. The worry is because of what's going to happen, right? So the worries arising because we are worried about the future, what's going to happen. For example, a pandemic, we worried of our loved ones, what happens going to happen to them. So all these worries, then especially when we get worried about what's going to happen in the future, then we will tend to forget what is in the present. But if we take care of what is in the present, surely the future will unfold in a way that how we work in our present, and that's what the teaching is about. So they have the careers, the families, and the relationships, and that's our life. So when a life flows, and when we lay people that we tend to be what's going to happen to our career, what's going to happen to our children's career, our family, our mother, and so on, and the relationships and other relationships that we have. So the Buddha say, all sentient beings are like my son. So these should be beings are like my only son. So the Buddha has one and only son called Rahula. So, and Rahula, for information, is one of the 10 great disciples, because Rahula is actually one of his foremost in good character. So there is a teaching, especially in Vajrayana Buddhism, Vajrayana practice, is to learning from this particular line, is to regard all sentient beings as if they are only child. And that's how that love should be. Because if you regard everyone as your only child, then we have no discrimination in all the people that we see or in whoever we interact with. So with a heart like this, he loves all beings, and that's what we should try to emulate and to have this unconditional love. So only by doing this are we contemplating true principles, so that attachment to worldly love is forgotten, and which is what I'm trying to explain in here. Forgotten to the extent that you love all. It's not to say that you don't love all your loved ones. Only then can we open our compassion and expand our love to be so great that our minds encompass the universe. So as I explained earlier from the verse, that it's from that growing of that love, that's only then we can open our compassion. So our minds then encompass the universe, and that's what the explanation of masters trying to explain. That's what great love means. So when you talk in Sati about Ta'ai, so that's where the great love is. So we continuously seek the Buddha's way and continuously transform sentient beings. This is lasting compassion and great love. So how that they continuously transform? So we continuously transform through our aspirational vows. That means we'll continue to do this until the supreme enlightenment is reached. So this is how we walk the Bodhisattva path. And because through the 4 vows that we undertake. So that's the explanation. So because obviously they were here referring to the 4 great disciples, because they were already old when the Buddha thought the Bodhisattva way. They thought it was meant for young people, because who felt inspired. In this passage, already Owen described it, has appeared many times. But we need to remember that life is not distinguished by its length. Now, I underline, I bold this word, it's not distinguished by its length. One can have a very long life in this world, living the worldly life. One may have a short life, but growing in practice. So therefore, what a short life in practice has a long spiritual life. So we need to understand between the worldly life that we live and the spiritual life that we live. So the human life is inherently impermanent, and we know that regardless of its length, we must broaden our scope of our lives. So how do we broaden the scope of life? Is through our spiritual practice. So we must deepen the value of our life. We can then expand the breadth of our life to great love that we endeavor to practice. So the Bodhisattva way requires actualizing the 6 parameters in all our actions. So this obviously the 6 parameters of generosity, morality, patience, perseverance or diligence, meditation or samadhi, and wisdom that we uphold. So when we practice this growth of this small love to great love, we must understand to do so with wisdom, which I will share with you in our contemplation. So in contemplation, The good influence and practice can only come to you when you have undertaken to renounce or unwholesomeness, harmonize with all, with the heart of great love. So when we are in this path that we are in, and obviously if you look back into your life, how did you have this merits to be on this practice? It must have come from your past merits, and in which you have grown your good influence, right? And to engage in the good practice. So can only come to you when you have undertaken to renounce your unwholesomeness. Otherwise, you can't even understand why you get into this practice. So therefore, it's then incumbent on us now that we have now renouncing unwholesomeness. We should harmonize with all with a heart of great love, so that we do not discriminate from one to the other. So we renounce our worldly ways and abandon all that are unwholesome and hurting. So harmonize with all to establish good affinities. And I think that Master mentioned this about 1 or 2 lessons ago. And this is this good affinities is important, because this will also determine, remember Master said the reward land, I think was yesterday or the day before, not yesterday, was the day before. The reward land that we are in practice, and this is built from a good affinity. So in the same way that we have this affinity to be in practice, and it must have been grown from our past life. So generate a great loving heart to embrace all and to invoke the bodhicitta mind. So the bodhicitta mind is an encompassing that love and the 6 parameters. When you renounce, harmonize, and love all, you will inevitably have the beauty of the heart of a disciple that attracts the divine in this life and the future. So when we cultivate, don't discount that the divine is also paying attention to how you practice. So the bodhisattvas who are, always the bodhisattva comes to the world to serve and help liberate sentient beings. So they not necessarily come in a human form. They also come in invisible forms. So how does one then attract through this bodhisattva is the beauty of the heart. And I think I shared with you once this particular line of contemplation. I say, just like the beauty of a place attracts many a traveler, the beauty of the heart attracts the divine. So on relationship, on loving relationship, cultivate the virtuous heart to purify the mind. The heart loves, but the mind doubts. And that's the case, because that's why sometimes people say, do you decide based on your heart, or do you decide based on your mind? You're a heart person or a mind person, but it's in the nature of the mind. The mind doubts, and this one of the affliction. Right? But doubt is not necessarily a bad thing, but so long as you find out and clear your doubt, that is important. So the path teaches you to learn from life, to teach the virtuous heart to convince the mind. And that's what we are supposed to be doing. So the mind can be very discriminative. But if we then open up our heart, and then we can then convince the mind and lower down our ego. So a desirous heart can be moved by love, by growing from small love to great love. So when you grow from small love to great love, also start by saying about worldly love. This worldly love is essential love. So if I were to just look at it, how one can grow in a great, and what exactly is then this great love? So this great love, maybe what we can start, that we can look at it, and the first step to awaken from a worldly love is called awakening love. To understand what spiritual love is, what is this love that we should be cultivating, so awakening love. Second is to activate that. So we call activating love. When you have activating love, it's natural for you to the next one to grow into, it's called sincere love. When you go into sincere love, then you grow into deep love. And the deep love is where you can then arise the true love, that we understand what the spiritual practice should be. But it's from the true love when we get into the practice that we need to discern what this true love is and walk to learn with wisdom, and it's called wise love. From the wise love, then we then understand ourselves. We break up all the boundaries and the divisions we have within us to emanate the equal love. As from equal love, that you no longer discriminate anyone anymore, and that's where the equal love will grow in altruistic love. And from altruistic love, obviously, then you can go into unconditional love. When unconditional love is there, like the Buddha did, for regard everyone as his only child, and that's where one can grow into divine love. Okay, and brothers, sisters, thank you.
Kanan so much, Brother Chin. Today we are overdosed with love. Wow, so many types of love. So much love lah. Don't know. Small love, big love, awakening love, altruistic love. Wow, I think first time in my life I learned so many love. There are so many love ones.